Done Right comes from politicsdoneright.com, publishers of How to Make America Utopia, Take Away the Economy from Those Who Rigged It, As I See It, Class Warfare, The Only Resort to Right-Wing Doom, It's Worth It, How to Talk to Your Right-Wing Relatives, Friends, and Neighbors, and other books written by Egberto Willis. Welcome to Politics Done Right. My name is Egberto Willis, your host. Good morning, Houston. Good morning, Harris County. Good morning to the great state of Texas. Good morning to Northeast Texas, Southeast Texas, Northwest Louisiana, Southwest Louisiana. Good morning to every nook and cranny in these areas receiving the signals of our 100,000 watt transmitter. Good morning to the entire world who, with the access they get from the magic of the internet, also previously known as the ARPANET, developed by your dollars, developed by your intellect. Who do I mean by your? I mean the collective, all of us combined, not the individual, the collective nature of our intelligence over the millennials of years that actually get things done, that actually move things forward, not the individual. Because of all of that, we have the magic of technology. We have the magic of all that we do, not because of one, but because of many. Anyway, before we get going forward, I'd like to go to the studio where we have the geniuses, part of the collective that gets things happening. Buenos dias, mis hermanos favoritos. Good morning, my favorite brothers. How are you guys doing this morning?
Resistance is futile. We are the Borg. You'll be joining our collective, whether you want to or not.
Well, they're already members of the collective.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think the Borg could be renamed as Project 2025. I was listening to Arnie Arneson on the way in this morning, and the amazing thing about it is, I don't know if it's amazing or whether it's tragic, that the Christian right, the evangelical Christians, are just eating Donald Trump up. Oh, we love this guy. We think he's wonderful. He is the antithesis of everything that they believe in. How is this possible? You know, just give me a moment to express my Trump derangement syndrome, as people have been saying. But this guy is bad. He is crazy. And you want him to run the country? I don't think so. Anyway, that's my 2 cents for this morning. And Jack, looks like you got some wisdom over there this morning.
Yeah, I was been thinking about war a lot here lately. What causes it? Why we go there?
Too many
guns. Good morning, Egberto.
Good morning, Jacques. Talk to me, my brother. Talk to me.
Yeah. Why do we go to war? The underlying main reason is profit and resources. First, they paint a picture of the leader that demonizes them to the public. Then the drumbeat for war starts. As the conspirators conspire to hide the true reason for war, they lay the blame at the countries warred against. Then the shells fall. Then the guns shoot. Then the bombs blast. The innocent die, and so does the truth. The true challenge we face is how to stop the oligarchs from using the military to take us to war for their benefit.
Well, good luck on that one.
People have to wake up. It's not going to change unless you wake up and say, no, we're not doing this no more.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, they're going out on strike for more money these days, and they're saying, we're not going to do the job for this amount of money. And I guess on a larger scale, they could do that.
Yep. I mean, it's all about somebody getting profit.
Mm-hmm.
You know, people are waking up, though. The thing about it, it's slowly, and every time people wake up, you know, we usually get the posers to come in and destroy the movements. And what we have to do is wake up permanently. And I'm starting to see it. Yesterday, we spoke about 70% of Americans now supporting the unions. I mean, the Powell memo, along with the oligarchy, they were successful for a long time in destroying unions. by making people believe, well, unions are corrupt, and if there's corruption everywhere. Unions are corrupt, governments are corrupt, corporatocracy is the most corrupt of them all, right? But
Yes.
again, yeah, the corporations are more corrupt. I mean, I could tie everything that Jack just said at the feet of the corporation, right? Everything that he talks about, the corporations want to build bombs, the corporations want to get raw materials. So all these wars are ultimately for money. I mean, there's a thing that I saw on TikTok on Africa as far as why is Africa in the state that it's in? And it is by design. No country in Africa can decide that they want to come out and start their own manufacturing in the aggregate. Come on, yeah, things are manufactured in Africa, etc. But in effect, Africa is the raw resource provider of the world by design, and everybody used. I mean, people don't understand how big it is. Corporations know how big it is because they're the ones that exploit it, but they make it look like a basket case. The same goes with here in America. They make the poor look like the basket case, and in fact, that is some of what we're going to talk about today and how it is that make they what they do to actually make the poor the basket case. I saw an article that really touched me. It's called "We Should Listen to Reverend Barber on White Poverty and Multiracial Organizing." And that kind of tickled my fancy, when as I'm perusing these different articles. And the guy who wrote the article, Louis Steele, white guy, rich from a wealthy family, but he's a civil rights attorney. And that even piqued my interest some more. Rich guy, concerned about what this reverend has to say about the white poverty, etc. And I want you guys to remember, I interviewed Barber 2 or 3 times, and when he came out with his book called White Poverty, I interviewed him on another subject, but he brought up that the book was coming out. I haven't interviewed him since the release of the book, I don't think. I'm going to try to look that up, and whatever the case is, I got an interview due with Dr. Reverend Barber. But um, it is so important what this guy says. I want to read the beginning of the article and then kind of expand on it a bit. It goes as follows. It says, "For progressives to win, we need a powerful multiracial coalition," and that's true. The reason you should always in a country where race matters, it shouldn't, because race is a stupid thing. It's a social construct designed to divide and conquer by our economic system. A lot of people don't see the connections, but as I do more studying, reading, etc., and how the corporation is formed and how we get an economic system that we get, I'm able to discern that colorizing people, finding a visual method and more to separate people is the essential thing necessary for an unjust corporatocracy as we have today, even though a lot of people don't see it yet. One of the things we're going to get towards. It's imperative that we have manners in which we can tell people you're different than that person, you're better, you're worse, create pecking orders, etc. So the only way true progressive values work if everybody is engaged, multiracial, multi everything, because everybody has to feel that oneness that we're all fighting together for something that benefits us all, irrespective. Continuing with the article, he says that includes the people of color who disproportionately suffer property and structural violence, but also includes the white people who make up the largest share of poor people in the country. People don't realize that because the country is an overwhelmingly white country, of course, even though proportionally people of color suffer more poverty as a percentage of their population, the largest group of poor people by others by multiples are white people. That's where most of the poor exist. And let me just say something. If that weren't the case, a lot of the social programs that we have wouldn't have been realized anyway. Remember how the New Deal was distributed in the beginning, and you'll see what I'm talking about. So, as Reverend Dr. William J. Barber points out in his book, White Poverty, there are more white people than any other racial group, and more effort should be put into pulling them into this coalition, which I wholeheartedly agree with. And I spoke to Barber about that before, and that is where the only way we win, the progressive values win, is we bring all into the fold. This is what the author says now. I'm a white man from a wealthy family and a lawyer who took on tough civil rights cases, fought them as if my life depended on it. My goal from the beginning was to join those who are trying to make America a better place, a country where racism and sexism would slowly fade away and where the possibility of equal opportunity would shine through. I see that road forward in Reverend Barber's new book, that book that we called White Poverty. But this is shocking what he found out because he talks to a lot of people, the lawyer here. This is what he said. Talking to white people in all walks of life, from taxi drivers to restaurant workers, as well as bankers and stockbrokers, has been very revealing. When I say I'm a civil rights lawyer, their voices often take on a certain unsympathetic tone. Oops, here's this rich white lawyer speaking to this middle class, poor, or working class taxi driver or janitor or whatever. And whenever he says he's a civil rights leader, the first thing that person thinks or has is that unsympathetic tone. And he says, and many times they inject the black crime rate into the conversation. Sometimes the person will shift the conversation to discuss black children being raised by single women who use food stamps to put on the table or who benefit from welfare programs. You see, the psyche in America is when you think somebody in need, somebody asking for something, somebody on welfare, crime, we have been programmed to colorize that. You hear crime, you think black person. Hell, even black people, whenever they hear crime and they see something on TV, the first thing they think, man, I hope that person isn't a black person. Because of the connotation all these stereotypes have: poverty, black or people of color; crime, black or people of color; children out of wedlock, black or people of color. That is how people have been programmed to think, right? So that when we start asking for things for poor people, when progressive says we need these different policies for poor people, because in your psyche, you see poverty, unemployment, violence, and all these things as black issues, you have, and also you think of people of color and black as lesser than. It is easy for the corporatocracy, the government run by the corporatocracy, to limit what they claim they are willing to provide, because those who are in the same predicament as those people of color, black folks, etc., white people in those same predicaments will somehow alienate themselves from it because that's those people problem. I may be starving. I may not be able to make my next bill. I may be underpaid. I may be all those things, but that's a problem for those other people. If you get what I'm saying here, you get to understand that by colorizing people, by racializing people, you abstract the pains of your own community because of the hate, because of the prejudice you have allowed to instill in you on others. It's magic. And it's essential for our economic system. It's essential for the wealth disparity. It is essential for the economic. It's, when Bernie Sanders used to talk economy, 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 it used to frustrate civil rights leaders who say, why don't you talk race, race, race? They are intertwined in a manner that when Bernie Sanders is talking solely on economic issues, he eliminates the racial issues, which I agree with many a times, because if you put the racial issue in, suddenly that which everybody should be working for suddenly take on a different connotation. How can I be working on the issues of violence on out of wedlock people and out of people in poverty? How can I be talking about these issues? I mean, I am not them. How can I coalesce with them? And that's the magic. That's the magic. That is the magic. The guy continued, the lawyer. As Barber points out, there are more than twice as many poor white people as there are poor black people in the nation. But if I mention that, the person sometimes, in other words, he's talking to a taxi cab driver, a janitor, or whatever, a white taxi cab driver, a white janitor, whatever, poor white person or whatever, he says, uh, but if I mention that, the person sometimes appears not to hear me or lets me know in no uncertain terms that it is black people themselves who are at fault for their poverty, and they should look to their own lives rather than blame whites. The government taxes us, I'm often told, to give them a free ride. When I hear this, I know there's something major missing. Yeah, of course. Most of the welfare programs, most of the all the giveaways go not to black people. In fact, not even to white. More of it goes to white people as poor white people, middle class white people, etc. But it also mostly goes to corporations. And who runs the corporations again? That's where most of our tax dollars go. Quantifiable, verifiable, discernible. It's all there for us to see. But by us colorizing everything, by us always in a racial context, and by us having a pecking order, a racial pecking order, we don't see it. Our economic system makes sure that we continue with the lies, that we continue with the misinformation, because in doing so, we can control all of you. We can control every single person, point blank, punto y final. The guy, I'm not going to read the entire article, but another part of it says, as a lifelong civil rights leader, I find that his signal resonates. As Barber persuasively argues, the public and the country's legislatures, federal, state, and local, accept the myth that poverty is only a black issue, as do the people I talk to daily. They view poverty through this lens to the detriment of black people and white people alike, as well as people of all other colors and races. And you know why? Because color, race, and all of that, folks, it's stupid. The biology of pigmentation, the biology of the physical attributes of one, etc., has so little to do with humanity. But it works in our economic system. It works in our economic system because if I can separate you on whatever, I can control you. And that's why you are all slaves. It's not the black folks were never the only slaves in this country. The largest slave group has always been poor white people. They just never knew it. As Barber points out, the political establishment invariably markets itself to the needs of the middle class and ignores the poor, and whites especially look the other way. The same is true even in our country's religious establishment. Barber notes that a Pew Research Center study of nearly 50,000 sermons found that neither the words poverty nor poor register as commonly used in American pulpits, even though Jesus Christ, right, always spoke about it. So, in effect, what Barber has put together is a multiracial fusion movement, and it's under the auspices of the Poor People's Campaign and several other names and doctrines where he actually promotes this. It is essential for us folks to wake up. We have got to wake up. We have got to leave race aside. Yes, we have to solve the problems that were created by that separation, etc. But let me tell you something. You go into the ghettos of Houston or the ghettos of Baltimore, the ghettos of San Diego, LA, Las Vegas, and all these other major cities, right? It's right there exposed on TV for you to see. And yes, it looked pretty much, those areas look pretty much either black or people of color, or however you want to name it. That's what it looks like. That's what people see on TV. What people don't see on TV is the mountains in West Virginia, the midst of Mississippi, throughout the Appalachian trails, right up through Tennessee and all these other places, where most of the people that are there don't look like the people that you think of poverty. But the same ills that you find in those communities in Phoenix, Arizona, in Houston, Texas, and elsewhere, the same ills that are really socioeconomically based is what you find with our white brothers and sisters right in those areas. And you know who found that out, understand that, is Dr. Reverend Barber. Why he created that multiracial poor people's campaign. And until we allow ourselves first to look at humanity itself for what it is, humanity, humane, humanity, not colored by hue, not colored by gender, not covered by any of these other things, but all of us, one for all for one. That's the only way we beat the oligarchy. Because the oligarchy would have the people below believe that racialization and all of that matters. But you know, even during Jim Crow, we were dealing with the kings and queens of Africa. Even under Jim Crow, we were dealing with the folks in China. The folks in China, the Asians in America were always treated horrendously bad. Blacks in America were always treated horrendously badly. But of course, the oligarchy dealt with these people of these different hues differently when they're in China, when they're in the different countries of Africa, when they're in the different countries in South America, Latin America. They had agencies in those countries. They had human agency in those countries. So, why they had no human agencies in America, and America treated them with agencies in other countries they didn't hear, it should tell you something. Again, when I say it's all economic, it's all the economic system dependent on racialization so that we can maintain the master slave relationship between the oligarchy and the masses. Until we understand that, and yeah, there are the 10 or 20% that are the managerial and the class that's running everything else, right? But they are the ones that are sanctioned to keep you down. They are the ones that are sanctioned. And for all those who think that, well, you know, the way the system works, I can accumulate wealth, then don't get sick and die, baby. Because the way the system is designed, by the time of your end of life, especially now, you will lose it all. Because the system does come back to take what it giveth, the oligarchy, the plutocracy. And if we don't understand these concepts as I'm talking about them now in its entirety and their interrelation, the problems will remain. And you know what? In this chaos, that's how they thrive. In this chaos is how they thrive. All right. Anyway, let's go. Start taking our calls. 713-526-5738. Again, that number is 713-526-5738. Let's go to the mayor of politics done right, who I haven't heard from all week, El Senor Johnny. Come on in, Johnny. Talk to me, my brother.
Good morning, my brother from another mother. So,
yes, sir.
When you say the word crime and what it makes you think of, you know what I think of right away? I immediately think of Channel 13 Morning News. When you say crime, I think Channel 13 Morning News. That is criminal what they do, but also they misrepresent what crime is. That's why I don't bother with them. I don't mess with them. They are brainwashing. They're corporate brainwashing to make people think that all the criminality is poor black people, unmotivated black people, evil black people. And when Captain Reynolds rap says resistance is futile and you must join the collective, I say yes. Why? Because collective brings to mind socialism and its socialized economic solutions to the economic abuses created by unfettered, underregulated, mercenary-style capitalism and GOP austerity, plus cult, I think of projection by the right wing when they talk about Trump derangement syndrome and how we on the left suffer from Trump derangement. No. They're projecting onto us what they are suffering. They're the ones that are suffering from Trump derangement syndrome. They're in the cult. And that's all I got to say.
Yeah. Thank you, brother. You know, when you talk about how Channel 13, etc., portray the news, it is so true. I had a friend that got into trouble, credit card type trouble, misusing credit card. Okay. And he got himself a good lawyer. And whenever you see crime portrayed on TV, the people of color on TV are disproportionate to the population of the city. And that goes, you'll see this in San Diego when I go to visit in San Diego or Miami. The same modus operandi occurs. So my friend got into trouble and he got probation and he went to, where they all go into I don't remember what stage of his sentence he was in already, but it was a room full of all these people getting probation, etc., etc. And I remember him shockingly calling me on the phone, and he said crime was so white. I remember when he said that, and it tripped me out when he said that. I said, "What do you mean?" And he said, "Egberto, I was the only black person in that place." And I said, "Why should that surprise you?" And then he said, "Justice, I guess, ain't blind." And I said, "No, it has never been." You see, in Kingwood, where I live, right? Most children are good children. They're no different than children in the ghettos around here in Houston. But I live in the back of Kingwood near a park, and the kids have smoke houses in the park where they go smoke their dope or take their stuff or have their beer bus. None of them go to jail when caught. So they are never in the system. They never form parts of the records in the system. While in South Park or Studewood or these other places, as soon as they do something, the police come, drags them, they take them down. There's a record created for them. So when you get the statistics, it says the criminality of people of color look different than the criminality of white people. It's not true. BS in, BS out. But I'm telling you what happens where I live in my white community, right? It doesn't show what statistics really look like. Anyway, anything else, Johnny, before I go to Donald?
Yeah, to dovetail what you just said just seconds ago, that's selective enforcement. And how do we know? Because can you imagine cops hanging around the doorsteps of the wealthy in Kingwood or
Thank you.
what's that place where George Bush lived in Houston? No, they hang around in the poor areas because that's easy. That's easy work. They can pick on those people because they perceive them as powerless and disconnected, not connected. No, people in places,
And
high
it
places of
feeds
power.
and it feeds a jail industrial complex, a criminal industrial complex.
Yes.
It feeds it because as they privatize these things, they have to keep it fed. And how do you keep it fed? But with people who don't have lawyers to get them off. It's all economic, it's all racial, and that's where I said the collective has got to get together. Thank you, Johnny. As usual, always have some good input,
And
my
remember,
brother.
one last thing. Remember one last thing. Louis DeJoy is one of the biggest criminals around, but we don't see him being arrested. Why? Because the crime he commits is not being done at a stoop in Brownsville, New York. It's being done in high towers where no one could get a
There you
hold of
go.
him.
You nailed it. Thank you, brother. Have a good one, Johnny. All right, let's go to brother Donald. Come on in, Donald.
Hey, good morning, Alberto. How are you?
I am fine, my brother. Talk to me.
Now, how come a couple of months ago when I told you we all just white trash, poor white trash, poor black trash, poor brown trash, is it finally sinking in yet? Are you finally picking up what I've been throwing down?
Let me tell you, Donald, I've been preaching this stuff for a long time. I have written a couple of books that include this stuff, man. All right. The article tickled my fancy this morning because I know I needed to put it on air. So, but I hear you. But you know what? Guess what? I'm still going to give you credit because you're on the ball, brother. Okay? Is that good enough?
And remember about putting these young people did this crime, that crime, and taking it away? That's what I've been saying. And this is the book that you need to write, and it's going to be a bestseller. This is my story. You put your name. Then you put a little mirror on the front. And then you go through and you open the book. I was conceived on this date. My name is this. And you go through because, like I said, you can't control the first part of the book. But you can flip the book over. Don't let somebody else write the damn.
That is genius what you just said.
Yourself.
Hey, Donald, that's genius what you just said.
Yes, sir. But yeah, don't be looking me up all that progressive and humanitarian.
Hey. Wait. Stop it. You are a progressive. You may not want to accept it because you want to have that MAGA phrase on you. Damn it, you are a progressive. Goodbye, Donald. I'm sorry that you have a hard time realizing you have a heart, okay?
Yeah, this is the problem, Alberto. They've been trying to put me in that box because ever since I was a little kid, I always asked the question, why? And I've
because
always
that's
been
who
told
you are.
No. And you know what? When they tell me no, I turn it to on. And I flip the switch. I ain't turning it
Donald,
off. And
Donald, I got to get to the other caller. Donald, bye.
Yes.
Have a good one, brother. Peace. Let's go to Bart. Come on, brother Bart. Come on in.
Good morning, sir. I wanted
Good
to
morning,
offer a
sir.
little. Good morning. Yes, I wanted to offer a different perspective on your topic. I believe that I need to say I'm sorry to the black people, but you have been replaced by 20 million illegal immigrants. In California and other places, they want to give them $150,000 to buy a house. So we tried to warn the black people that you're going to be replaced, but they didn't want to listen. So now.
Okay, stop. Bart. Were you listening? Bart, stop it. Bart, stop it. Listen to me, Bart. Bart. Listen to me, Bart. Question. Why do you believe, first of all, you're wrong, but let's go under the pretense that you are right. Okay, that somehow undocumented workers are going to get something. What do you mean by that is replacing black people? What do you mean by that?
I mean on the welfare side of things.
Great. So did you Okay, stop. I asked a question, you answered. I asked a question, you answered. Okay? Hold on a second, brother. Hold on a second. That you are the prototypical person the article was written for. Because right there, when you say that the undocumented guys are going to replace black people as the people that are getting something for free, you have fallen directly into what we've spoken about. And it's going to be hard changing your viewpoint because you do see black people, people of color, as welfare folk and dependent folk, etc. Now, first of all, I'm a black person, I'm a Latino person, I'm a Caribbean person, I'm a West Indian person. I have never, this is personalized now. I've never gotten a penny from the government other than for a very short time, a student loan, which I paid back in full. But other than that, I've paid hundreds of thousands of dollars more in taxes to this country and never gotten it back. Don't want any of it back, and was happy to do so because I believe in paying taxes for the collective. All right. That said, that said, I am no different than most black people, than most white people on what they have given to this country. But it is in a cynical manner the way you have been informed to have you believe that there is an equation between blackness or people of colorness and welfare. And it hurts the people who look like you, assuming that you're a white guy. It hurts the people who look like you who are in need. Because most of the people in need in this country, my brother, looks like you. And that is the thing that you can't get into your head because it makes you feel better that somehow there is this group that's not like you. So, what I'm saying, Brother Bard, is as follows. Please wake up, learn, educate yourself, my brother. It's important, not just for you, but for people as well who look like you. But you have a wonderful day, my dear brother. We'll talk tomorrow. Let's go to Greg. Come on in, Greg.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can,
okay,
Greg.
Okay. Yes. Well, I'm loving your show again this morning, and very important topic about the brainwashing and the creating this, because the creating of the racist, what do I want to say, structure of our society and so forth. And real quick before I respond to your previous caller, I wanted to share something about what y'all are talking about. The brainwashing is very subtle sometimes. Sometimes it's way out there like Cops. I don't know if you ever watched the TV show. I really couldn't watch more than a little bit at a time because it was so so incredibly racist, and it only showed, predominantly when it first came out in the 90s, it predominantly showed only black and brown people committing crimes. I guess they supposedly got a little bit cleaned up later on. But on regular news, I'd come home from grad school and take a little break. I'd try to cook my dinner and sit down in front of the TV and watch the little news. And one time I was watching the news and they're talking about gangs coming to the suburbs. All right? And, they always like to have a little video rolling behind them while they're talking about in the news, because it is a visual media and stuff. So in the background, they had two kids walking in a neighborhood carrying a basketball. What race do you think those two kids were? There's no signs of gang in those two kids. But what race do you think they were?
Black.
The story is black. Yeah, they're black. And the story was gangs moving to the suburbs. And in the video there were two kids walking with a basketball.
Mm-hmm.
And they're just two innocent kids. So what's that tell people? That, well, hey, if you're at a stop sign and there's more than one black person walking across the street, you better lock your doors, huh?
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad that you said it that way, Greg. You said something. A lot of times, it is so subtle the way it's done, right? It is so subtle the way it is done. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm sorry. I got another personal example. Let's see here. My wife guess she's probably been in the country about 6 years, and she comes from a black country. She comes from Tanzania, all right? And I'm sure whenever they drove around in Tanzania, she didn't sit there and lock her door every time a couple black guys came walking across the street. She's with her Jamaican friend, and they go up to a stop sign. They're in a part of Houston they're not familiar with, and these two young black men can walk across the street, and she sneaks over and hits the lock button, and it goes click. And the two guys look at her and raise their arms. She'd only been in the country for a short period of time, but she loved TV. And she had already been brainwashed to be fearful of black people, a fear she didn't have coming from Tanzania. Isn't that crazy?
Man, let me tell you something. Greg, you don't know the importance of what you just said. That's genius, to show you how we are all brainwashed by what the system has done to us. Even because in Tanzania, she didn't feel that way. In Arcoiris, I didn't feel that way. We left our doors open, right?
Yes, sir. Yes. I got another example. Sorry, I teach sociology, so and I'm a lifetime sociologist. Everywhere I go, I'm a sociologist. So I'm constantly looking at the world from that perspective. There's another thing. I teach in A-Leaf. I'm a social studies teacher there. I teach sociology and college level sociology and economics. But there's and I teach real economics, not American economics. It's the stuff that you talk about in your show. Okay, I don't know if my students get it, but that's kind of economics. But there's a young man who was an LSIC student at the time that got caught. You probably remember this because they sued the police department. But he got caught stealing a warehouse out here in A-Leaf, and he jumps over the fence, and the cop car pulls up, and he just dives down on the ground and doesn't move. And the cops come out and start kicking him and kicking him and kicking him and kicking him and kicking him. And my students go, Mister, why are the black cops kicking him? And I said, because they watch the same television that the white cops watch. They get the same propaganda.
You know, and don't forget what happened in Tennessee. You know, everybody talk about the cops, and somehow integrating the cops going to change things, right? Of course, the guys who got killed in Tennessee were killed by 5 black cops beating the crap out of him. It's systemic. And that's why I said we need to stop racializing stuff. It is the system. Anyway, close out real quick, Greg. I got to go to Harry and Jacob.
All righty. Okay, nice talking to you. Take care.
Thank you, my brother. You have a great day. Let's talk to Brother Harry. Come on in, Harry.
Good morning, Brother Alberto. Good morning, Howard. Good morning, Jack. Love Greg's call. Love Johnny's call. And Bart, you know, what can you say? He's going to be typical Bart. This system is based on racism and classism. That's why you wrote that book, Class Warfare, Alberto. You have the poor whites. There's mostly poor whites in this country that make up the poorness, as Dr. William Barber was talking about. And with blacks and browns, it's a lot of stereotypes to show cops that Greg was alluding to stimulate fear and polarize white people in the society. And we have to because we have this capitalist society, Alberto, and when you talk about capitalism, you've mentioned it many times and broken it down, how it works. The oligarchs and the plutocrats, as Jack always at times will talk about with the oligarch class and the plutocrat, and I love his pledge of allegiance to the United States of the oligarch class. People have to get ripped off in order for them to obtain power. And then the mayor of politics done right was saying that they hang around and police hang around in the poor communities because their blacks and browns and yellows are easy prey. And then people who have prison stocks, when those people get arrested, their prison stocks go up. So it's all that. Now, I wanted to comment on what Bard was saying about the 150,000. My friend from Florida was talking about that. I'm just wondering how 150,000 undocumented workers are going to get that kind of money, because as you pointed out, Alberto, many times on this show, undocumented people don't want to vote because they'll get found out. they'll get found out that they're not born here. And if they're going to buy a house and all that, they've got to put their information out there, so they'll be found out that they're undocumented. And so how are they going to get a mortgage?
Harry, I'm glad you brought that up again, because the contempt that the people have for their followers, and that Bard would allow himself to limit his intellectual capacity to believe something as silly as that. It speaks more about Bard than it speaks about the people that are fooling him. But for him to believe from a mathematical standpoint that makes sense, it just shows you that they're looking for an excuse to believe this. In other words, they deep in their heart, they can't be that unintelligent. So they are simply looking for an excuse to do that. Hello, Billy, Allison, Irwin on the chat, Eric Hayes, as well as Hi there. Hi there says Egberto for president. Nope, can't be president. I wasn't born in the United States. But Harry, I need to go to Jacob, and I'm running out of time. But so thank you very much for those smart comments. Let's go to Jacob. Come on in, Jacob.
Yeah, blessings in AM. Hey, man, like the guy just said, what he's saying is, when he said blacks, he look at us all the same, right? He didn't say reparations. He said blacks, right? He wasn't talking about you, because they know who deserves some of these things that anybody in this country deserves. They know who deserves it. They know who built the White House, literally. They know who the cotton was king. They know who picked the cotton that made America great. It's not the individual, which y'all call so-called white people. It's not the individuals. It's the United States government. It's the government. That's who owe the bill. That's what, because you go, the insurance companies, right? All these different industries that made they rich and passed it on down, and a lot of them, they say, well, it wasn't us. It wasn't us. No, but you inherited. They passed the wealth down to you. So you got to pay the bill. You got to pay that bill. And when it comes to the so-called welfare, 40%, 43% of all welfare is done by white people, 26% by black, and the rest by Hispanic. What it is in America, it's a propaganda machine. They lie so much. And the word devil just means deceiver. These are some deceivers. They deceive everything. And like the ones coming, you wouldn't even know all the stuff we invented, Herberto. You know how many things we invented? You say you know a lot of American history. Do you know all the inventions?
Actually, Jacob, I do. From the light bulb to the brake on the train, the real McCoy, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I follow the history, and don't ever think that I don't follow the history, brother. Okay, don't think that, my brother.
Okay, I got you. My bad on that. But within them, I know you're getting towards the end of the show. Hey, and wars. How many wars did we help win? If without us, they wouldn't have won. They wouldn't even won when the Buffalo Soldiers had to clear the land for them because they couldn't handle Geronimo and them. Our ancestors brought Geronimo's head, cut it off, and brought it to them. You know what I mean? We did.
Yeah, Jacob, I need to go, but let me just say, let me add a bookend to what you have to say here, okay? Because remember, what I am trying to do as an American activist, I want to remind everybody that we all have agency in America. And everything that you say about reparations, everything that you say about having been owed, etc., it's all true. But we all have to recognize together we are in this bowl together. And we can't allow the separations, because then the corporations win. And that's why we are all in this together. I got to go. Jacob, let's talk tomorrow. Tomorrow, let's finish tomorrow. So I can get other people. Thank you, brother. Let's go to David. Come on in, David.
Oh, thanks, Steve. Hey, to kind of follow up on your conversation there with Jacob, if you think about following the money with reparations, there are a bunch of big corporations that still exist today from the Civil War that never gave anything back, right? So it's the corporation at this point that's the big pocket of money. And I think, what is it, Prudential Insurance, the reparations.
Oh, yeah,
people
they used to, yep. Oh, yes.
So the idea that this big money hoard tax the crap out of it, just yank their business license. In fact, this election year, there are small races all across America for the Secretary of State of every one of the 50 states. They can yank the business license of a corporation that is refusing to do any honor, any good to the nation. There is no reason to give a business license to a parasite. And a parasite, the con artists of the 1800s, the old huckster that would be on the wagon going from town to town selling some nostrum, those guys would be trail of poison and dead people behind them, and they'd be gone to the next county by the time everybody came sick. So this whole idea that we are allowing a business license to go to they're worse than parasites. They're like criminal operations. And
David, I got to go, but Brian is waiting on the next line, and we only have 2 minutes.
Sometimes the county clerk has that option too.
Thank you, brother. You're absolutely right. Let's go ahead and talk. Thank you, David, for your call. Appreciate it. Brian, come on in. Brother Brian, you're hot.
Hey, good morning. Yeah, good morning. How old is your daughter?
How old is my daughter? 32?
Yes.
Wait, 30?
30?
Yeah, 32.
Okay,
33,
okay.
I think. 33, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, how does she feel about men and women in the same locker room?
That isn't something that she actively thinks about. I don't, but I don't think she'd have a problem with it if they have their private spaces.
Okay, well, you need to follow up on that. Because
no. Let me tell you why. Let me ask you something, Brian. Why are these types of topics that rarely ever affect 99% of Americans always the issues that many of you on the right want to pollute the ethos with? I mean, there's so many things that really matter to most people. Why do you concentrate on these petty little things?
no, they're not petty when it involves young.
Does it involve children. You at all? Does it involve you?
Yes,
does
it does.
Involve your child? How does it involve you?
No, I don't have a child. We have no children.
So then it doesn't involve you at all?
No, it involves the future. The children are the future.
Right, and who says? What examples can you give me that's going to affect the future of children when there are so many other things that affect the future of children that you don't concern yourself with? Why don't you concern yourself about all the kids in Houston that are going to school hungry that affects their mental capacity? Why aren't you concerned about all the lead pipes around Houston that should be changed that isn't being changed? Why don't you concern yourself about why it is that people can't maximize their potential because they don't have the educational ability, ways to get to school? Why don't you concern yourself about all those things that affect people, but instead concern yourself about those things that affect a very small amount of people?
Okay. You just said that children are not the future, but then you went into a tirade about lead pipes.
No, I didn't say children. I did not say children are not the future. I said those things that you're concerned about doesn't really affect children. It's that simple. Why aren't you concerned about, as Neil Maxon says, gun violence? Why aren't you concerned about the guns in the home that kills most of that kills more children than anything else? Those are the things that should concern you.
Suicide kills more people. Suicide kills more people. Okay, you're rambling on in your stupidity.
Okay, okay, Brian, I got one more call to take, Brian. But again, you think about what I just said. James, come on in. Real quick, James. You got.
What are y'all talking about? Look, man, they want to
you got.
Am I on the air?
Yes, you're on the air. 30 seconds.
Perfect. All right. They want to control what your children become. They want to form their children into perfect little Christian boys and girls. And anything that disrupts that is a threat. Clear and simple.
Thank you very much for that, James. I got to go. Anyway, folks, Billy Allison, Eris Irwin in the chat, Melanie Keelan from Barcelona, Spain in the chat, Neo Maxin, welcome aboard. A lot of folks in the chat. Thank you guys very much. I got to throw it to the studio.
As always, another exciting program. And Jack, what you got? Jack has nothing today, so he's okay. No wisdom in Oh, he says no wisdom.
That's all right, no problem. But anyway, look, guys, right. Thank you guys for a great show. Thank you, brother. Look, all my callers, thank you so kindly. All my listeners, thank you so kindly. Love you all, because this is how we are going to make change in this country. We have to be together. We have to stay together. We can't let other people influence our thinking negatively. Look, most of what I had for the show today wasn't on, but it can be found at politicsdoneright.com/newsletter, including the part that says, guess what? Ronald Reagan supported open borders. Would you believe that? Ronald Reagan, open borders. Anyway, got to get out of here. politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. politicsdoneright.com/newsletter is where the rest of the program is. My name is Egberto Willis. This is Politics Done Right, and you guys know how I end this baby. I am what? Out!
You're listening to the American Democracy Minute, keeping your government buy-in for the people. In a move exemplifying why gerrymandering is a danger to American democracy, the Utah legislature